it's hard to believe, but Thanksgiving is right around the corner, only 4 short weeks away. So today I'm just sharing my top 10 favorite Thanksgiving recipes with you. I've got some new ones, I've got some old ones, but this is kind of my 2024 list, and I hope you love it.
This first one is a family favorite. It's a baked brie, and I'll explain at the end kind of why that top is a little bit brown, and generally it won't be, but this was kind of an interesting circumstance. So you're gonna need 1 sheet of defrosted puff pastry. You can find Pillsbury puff pastry sheets in the freezer section, and then you just follow the instructions. It just says take it out and leave it on the counter for about 30 to 40 minutes. And then just to make mine festive, I have these little cookie cutters. So if you're doing this for Thanksgiving, you can use tiny leaf cookie cutters. If you're doing it for Christmas, you could do something more Christmas themed. Really any time of year you can make something look a little bit cute, or you don't have to do this at all. This is just something extra, something fun. And I'm gonna show you a little secret here too. So I actually already had some of this brie. We broke into it. But even if we are bringing this to a friend's, right, we cut out that piece, no one's gonna know that part of that brie is missing. You're actually just making it right back into a ball there. And then on top of that brie, you just want to put a generous helping of, I used raspberry jam, but you could also use fig jam. You could use blueberry jam, whatever your favorite jam is that you have on hand. Maybe you don't want to go out and buy something, that's totally fine. You just put a nice big generous scoop right over the top of the cheese. And then we're just going to take the pastry and kind of fold it over. And so you just kind of fold it over itself so that it makes this circle around it. I had accidentally folded mine up before I put the jam on it first. So this recipe is very forgiving. And then you just kind of tighten it up there. And then I'm just going to put these 2 little leaf things right on top. And that's it. Like, it's super simple. You really can't screw it up. That's the nice thing about it. Like, it looks fancy, but you didn't have to do a lot of work. And then I put mine on parchment paper on top of a baking sheet, and I actually brought mine to a friend's house, and it turned out their oven was broken. So we had to use the toaster oven, which is why the top of this ended up being black. But you want to cook it at 350 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes. Definitely check on it as it goes. You want to make sure that it's fully cooked, all that puff pastry is cooked through, and that inside that brie is going to be really melty and delicious. So you'll notice a few Halloween things because this was a Halloween adventure, but generally, you want to serve that at your Thanksgiving feast, and you shouldn't have the black on top because it's not going to be cooked in a little mini toaster oven. And then you can just serve it with either some crackers or some bread. I like to do some sliced up fresh, like French or Parisian loaf bread, and it is absolutely delicious. Like, I had people who had to leave, and they're like, I'm going to stay until the baked brie's done because I got to get a bite. It's that good. So if you've never made this before, you got to give it a shot and surprise your family and friends. All right, next up is a super low ingredient spinach dip with bacon, and you're going to be shocked at how delicious this is. Once I made it, I was like, why do we not put bacon on all the dips? Just put bacon on all the dips. So I heard this method, I don't even remember where, someone shared this method of defrosting spinach, and I thought it was genius. I loved it. So we're just going to take our frozen spinach. You can use kind of as much or as little as you want. I think use like half a bag of like 12 ounces, and then rinse it with hot water. And then you can really, and you can, lose your strainer at the same time, but you can really push all the water out of that and really drain it really well. And then you can cook your bacon, or you can just use like bacon bits, but in something like this, fresh cooked bacon is going to be pretty prime. So if you have some bacon on hand, go ahead and use that. I think pancetta would be also good with it. But back to that spinach. I love that method because then you don't have to heat it up. It's not like super hot on your hands when you're trying to wring it out. And you have to, we don't have extra time for that. So just by washing it with warm water, it just defrosted for me right away, which was super nice. And then we're going to grab, a cup or 2 of Greek yogurt. This one is super relaxed. And if you do have or don't have things on hand, it's going to be fine. And you could use sour cream too if you have sour cream. And then we're just going to add like kind of the wrung out, if that's the right word, spinach to that, and going to grate in 2 cloves of garlic. And if you don't have fresh garlic, go ahead and use a couple teaspoons of garlic powder to taste. You can kind of taste it, see how it turns out. But that fresh garlic does add a ton of flavor, and garlic's always one of those things you can get Really cheap, just keep it on hand and it's gonna give flavor to all of your food. And then add a sprinkle of your favorite seasoned salt. I'm using Auntie No-No's, and always just give it a taste as you go. You know, mix it up, see what you think. If you need to add something, then go ahead. I think a squirt of lemon in this would be really, really good too, but I didn't have any, so I didn't add it. And then we're just gonna put it in a dip bowl and cover it with that crumbled bacon. And I was even saying that if you could do like 2 layers, like do a layer of the spinach dip and then put a layer of bacon in the middle, and then put the spinach dip on top of it again, and then put a layer of bacon on top. I like that idea a lot. I don't really like the idea of mixing the bacon in with it because I just feel like it would get like soggy. Like you kind of want it to be like that crumbly, that topping on it. But the 2 layers I think I'm down with. I think if I was going to do it again, I would do 2 layers of bacon in between the dip. This one is so simple and such a crowd pleaser. I love it and it tastes so good. Just serve it with some tortilla chips or maybe some pita chips. And my husband loved it. We were like in awe. It was so good. And now I want to make little pumpkin rolls that are going to go with the meal. Start with 1 cup of warm water and a tablespoon of our yeast, a 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of softened butter, 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of salt, and then 3 1/4 cups of flour. We're going to mix this together really well with that dough hook and make sure that it's coming off the sides of the bowl. And then you're going to knead it inside the bowl for another 2 to 4 minutes. And I usually put it on medium when I do this. And sometimes it's kind of hard for the mixer to kind of handle it because it's kind of a tougher dough and it's really kneading it like you would do with your hands. So that's okay if your mixer is struggling a little bit. That's normal. You just want it to be that really soft, and it's almost like it gets like smooth and silky at the end once it's kneaded for long enough. So if you're kind of a more experienced baker, or you get to baking bread a few more times, you'll start to see that it's almost like a shine that kind of comes across the dough, and that's how you know that the dough is ready. But really, like about 4 minutes is going to be plenty of time to beat that or mix it with the dough hook. So I'm doing the same thing with this one, just oiling down a bowl. I made it into a nice little ball, and I'm gonna set it outside because it's nice and warm. Now we're gonna make our pumpkin dinner rolls. So you really wanna push out the air in this. It says kind of like punch it down. And we're gonna cut this into 12 portions, but we're also gonna take a little portion off to the side because we're gonna use that to make stems for the pumpkins. So I'm just kind of stealing this. Put this to get back together, and if I do half and then 6 on each side, I should get 12 portions. Similar to what I do with a sourdough, I'm just kind of pulling everything under and then shaping it in my hands, and then I'm going to place these on a baking sheet. So just gonna let these sit for 15 minutes, so cover them up. And then with that little piece that I had reserved to the side, I just made kind of like a long rope with that and then cut it into 12 pieces. Those are all just going to be the little tops to the pumpkins. So it's kind of an important piece. It's super cute and just super easy just to dice it up into 12 pieces and put it on the baking sheet with the balls. Okay, I have 12 strings here. This is like kitchen twine, and I cut them hopefully long enough that they're going to be able to go around each pumpkin twice. So we're just gonna actually, get our fingers in here. We've got some olive oil, whatever type of oil you want, but you wanna oil these so that they don't stick to the pumpkin. And so now they should be all set. So once our 15 minutes is up, we'll start wrapping the pumpkins up. So we have these all set up. We have our strings. Oh yeah. Fabulous. And your fingers are gonna get a little oily. As with baking, these things happen. Try your best to get it even, but you know, is what it is. Pretty cute. I think it's gonna puff right out. It's gonna do exactly what I'm hoping that it does. I think it's true what they say about finding your passion. I mean, you have to love it. So this is tedious. If you don't love it, if you're not gonna be so excited and proud and you're gonna be stressed out about doing it, then don't do it, you know? I really don't recommend that you do a more tedious baking project like this. Sorry, we got Ben in the background, but if you don't care deeply about what you're doing. Because you can just buy rolls at Walmart and they're gonna be fabulous. They're gonna be fabulous. So in go my little dinner pumpkins. We're cooking these 22 to 25 minutes. It's a little steamy, so it's hard to see, but these are perfectly golden and beautiful. Holy moly. I am gonna take some of our, you can either use butter, use oil, or you can use the margarine that we bought to just brush over these and make them nice and golden and beautiful. Okay, I also realized that I need to cut the strings off. We can't serve them like that. For this one, we're making the simplest roasted butternut squash. And this is the perfect addition to your Thanksgiving meal. And it's amazingly flavorful for how easy and simple it is. And it's great because you can actually cut all this up and kind of make it ahead of time and then just roast it at the last minute. So you want to start with one butternut squash. I always like to cut mine down the middle. I'm always looking for ways to take something that is not going to sit flat and give it a flat edge so that it can sit flat and it'll be easier for me to cut. So once I cut it down the middle like that, I like to cut the skin off the sides. And then I just cut the, like that bulbous part in half so that we can see the seeds in there, and cut off the bottom too so that there's just really no skin left. And then once you cut it in half, you can get to those seeds and we can eventually just scoop them out with a spoon. And then I do the same thing with the long part. You just cut the top off there so that we have two flat sides, and then we can just cut off all the skin from the sides. And then from there, you just want to try as much as you can to cut them into evenly sized, about 1/4 inch pieces. So I'm thinking about like when you get home fries at a breakfast restaurant, that's about the size that you want to cut these up into. And so I like to just kind of cut it down the middle and then cut both sides so that I can see and make everything as even as possible. And then again, I get to leave those flat on that flat side and then cut them again so that they're again in even parts. And then you just want to place those into a bowl. And once everything is in a bowl, all the pieces that you need, you just want to douse that in some olive oil, about a tablespoon, and then a sprinkle of salt, a sprinkle of pepper, and a sprinkle of garlic powder, probably a 1/2 teaspoon to a teaspoon of each. You can kind of measure with your heart on this because it's a pretty relaxed recipe. And then you want to take either a lined baking sheet or you can spray it down and evenly place all of the pieces of butternut squash. You want to make sure they're in a single layer, so like none of them are laying on top of each other. And then we're just going to bake this at 400 degrees for about 25 to 35 minutes. And halfway through, you do want to make sure that you're flipping those and moving them so that they get cooked on both sides. Definitely check it at the 25-minute mark. You don't want to overcook them by any means, and it's kind of depend on the size that you cut them into. Some of the smaller pieces might cook faster, but I found about 27 minutes, and mine were perfectly cooked through, and they weren't even like brown, but they were just like perfectly cooked, and they were actually just so incredible. It's sometimes the simpler things, sometimes like keep it simple, stupid, right? It works. And in this case, that is one of those recipes where you're getting all the flavors of the squash. You're not mucking it up with too much other stuff, and it's really delicious. Now, these Chive mashed potatoes were probably the best mashed potatoes I have ever made and had, so they definitely deserve a spot on your holiday table. And we're just going to start off by chopping some scallions, or if you have chives, you can use those. I just had some scallions, and I kind of always switch those out interchangeably. Again, we're just using what we have on hand, make things easier on ourselves. And this one is great because we're also going to use like kind of a convenience item to make them. So one thing I did to make things things easier on myself was just get the really small red potatoes so we don't have to peel them or anything. You can use any of the like tiny creamer potatoes. And if you want to save money, get the bigger ones and cut those up. That's going to be fine. Potatoes are also something I feel like most people have on hand at most times. And then we're going to add in a 1/4 cup of butter and a 1/4 cup of half and half for cream or milk. I think I just used milk because that's what I had on hand. And then 2 teaspoons of chicken bouillon. So that chicken bouillon is going to give it tons of flavor. And then we're also going to add in an 8-ounce container of chive and onion cream cheese. And this is what gives it all of the flavor, all of the amazingness, everything that is going to make everyone go, oh my goodness, these were the best potatoes I've ever had. It's just in the cream cheese. So you don't have to add like a ton of stuff. Just buy that at the store. It's the same price as that regular cream cheese and it's delicious. And then just add a pinch of salt. Do salt to taste on your mashed potatoes. It's always like if you feel like your mashed potatoes like aren't quite there, it's usually salt because potatoes absorb a ton of salt. And mash them up. I kind of forgot to get that part on camera, but you know, mix it all together, give it a good mash. Use your favorite method if you want to use like a potato ricer or if you want to use a handheld mixer, you can do that. And then I just put mine in a casserole dish and they're super easy to reheat in the oven, especially with a little bit of foil over the top, and put those scallions on or chives at the last minute. And yeah, that was a fast one because it's not a ton of ingredients. It's super easy. So if you're at the store, like grab yourself some chive and onion cream cheese and you can make these happen. This one is another super easy one at only 5 ingredients. We're making mac and cheese, and it is shocking how delicious this actually is. You again want to start with 1 8-ounce package of cream cheese, 2.5 cups of milk, 4 cups of shredded cheddar cheese, or you could use whatever your favorite cheese is in a mac and cheese, and then 1 can of evaporated milk. And these are things that I usually have on hand anyway, so it's super easy to make this. And then I cooked mine for an hour on high, and I separately cooked my elbow macaroni, and then I put it in and then cooked all of it together for another 45 minutes. And the crazy thing that happens is it seems almost like watery before you add in that mac and cheese, or the macaroni. But once you add the macaroni to the dish, it kind of takes on some of the, I guess, the liquid, and it just becomes so velvety, so smooth. I brought this to a friend's house, but I'll be definitely serving it at Thanksgiving as well, just because it's so easy and such a nice thing to do in the crock pot on the side and not have to worry about it. I'm just all about finding something that works that is not going to be cooking in my oven. So Jiffy corn casserole is a non-negotiable from my family on Thanksgiving, but I saw that you could do it in a slow cooker and I thought, wow, this is an amazing idea. So I just really wanted to try it, see if it worked, and it turned out awesome. I'm going to start with 1 egg and 1 cup of sour cream, and then 1 box of Jiffy corn muffin mix. And if you're gluten-free, I've actually made this before using the gluten-free, it's like Krutzes or Krusties. I'm going to say it wrong, but if you measure out the same amount that's in the box of Jiffy, you can do it with the gluten-free mix. And then you want a can of cream corn and then 1 drained can of corn. And last but not least, 1 stick of melted butter for good measure, because this casserole is obviously very healthy. But I mean, we don't have to worry about that on Thanksgiving, right? Calories don't count on Thanksgiving. So this is a delicious dish. Then you just pour everything right into your crock pot. I greased mine with some butter and cook it on low for 3.5 hours, and it turns out perfect. This is as good, if not better, than what I would bake in my oven. It's a perfect alternative to cooking something in your oven if you're looking to switch a few things out of there, and it tastes delicious. If you've never had Jiffy corn casserole, it's addicting and everybody loves it, I swear. So you might as well give it a chance because it's just not very hard to make, and it's just full of buttery goodness and flavor.
For this one, we're gonna make an amazing apple caramel cheesecake. This is some work to make, but totally worth it for Thanksgiving. We're gonna start by peeling and slicing 4 apples. I happen to have some Granny Smiths, but you can use whatever.
Apple tastes like apple.
Yeah, yummy, right?
Yeah.
And you wanna melt about 5 tablespoons, maybe a little more of butter over medium heat. You want to add in all of the apples and then 1/3 cup of brown sugar, as well as 1 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. And we're just going to cook this down for about 10 minutes. You want to make sure apples are soft. And then we're going to make our graham cracker crust. You do want a cheesecake pan here, especially on this one because it's going to be pretty tall because we're going to put a layer of those apples inside. So you want a spring form cheesecake pan. I've had this one for years. I have one down in my Amazon store. If you want to grab one, totally worth it, especially because once you make this, you're probably going to want to make it year after year, so you're going to need this. So you're going to need about 3 cups of crushed graham crackers. You can buy graham cracker crumbs. I happen to have these leftover ones. These are like Whole Foods ones, so they look a little funky, but I'm sure they'll taste just fine. So to your crumbs, you just want to add a cup of melted butter. Give these a good mix, and then we're just gonna press these into the bottom of your springform pan. Smells amazing. So we're just gonna bake this crust at 350 degrees for 10 minutes. And then these are pretty soft at this point. This is actually kind of a thick sauce, but if you think about it, we're gonna put this in the middle of the cheesecake, so I really don't want it to run everywhere. So I'm just gonna add a quick slurry of 2 teaspoons of cornstarch and 2 teaspoons of water. And you can see this is really quickly thickening this up. Yeah, you see how that's like getting like all gelatized? That's when you know. So we're just gonna put this in the fridge. So when this does come out, you wanna wait for it to cool down before we make the filling. So this is definitely a day before event. So we're waiting for those apples to cool down, and then we're just waiting for the crust to cool down. And at this time, you probably wanna take out your cream cheese and your sour cream and your eggs, because everything is going to work best in this recipe at room temperature. All right, I'm ready to make the filling. So you need 4 8-ounce containers, so 32 ounces of cream cheese for this, which makes sense because this is a cheesecake. We're going to mix that in a stand mixer until it's like completely creamy. Just the cream cheese, that's got to be either softened or at room temperature. I have all my stuff at room temperature. Once it's fully mixed, you want to add 1.5 cups of sugar, and again, fully mix that. And then we're going to add 4 room temperature eggs. And then once that's all mixed, you want to add in 1 cup of room temperature sour cream. Funny little story, I opened up my sour cream and it was moldy. So I had to run down to the store near me, which I don't have time for right now. So imagine it's Thanksgiving and your sour cream is moldy. So I guess double check ahead of time. I ended up grabbing some. Still nervous, like I couldn't open it in the store. They had 2 of them. They expire in like 5 days. Is it gonna be moldy? Let's hope not. 2 teaspoons of vanilla, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. So we're gonna give it like a little bit of that fall flavor, that apple flavor with some cinnamon and nutmeg. All right, we're ready for some fun here. We're gonna pour half of the cream cheese, cheesecake filling mixture into the pan, then cover that with your apple mixture that's now chilled, and then pour the rest of the cream cheese mixture on top. All right, so once we put this in here, I'm trying to make this as upright as possible. Ideally, you might want like a 10-inch, like a larger pie pan to go around here. And then you can put that right in here, and then we have some hot boiled water, and you put that underneath. You can also do another pan, just do a pan and then put this on the second rack. It's not as ideal as kind of like almost putting it in here. This is gonna make it super creamy. So I was like, well, this will work because I have a smaller pan and then a larger pan. There is an old school method of putting some, tinfoil around the bottom of this and then putting that in there. It's not gonna guarantee that it's not gonna get in there and kind of make the bottom moist, which we really don't want. So I'm not gonna do that. I won't recommend it. I would rather put a pan with water on the bottom rack there and then put this directly on this rack and then do that other method. You wanna be so incredibly careful with this.
but we have faith, right? Look at that. Beautiful. So now we're gonna cook this for an hour and a half to an hour and 50 minutes. So you really wanna make sure that on the edges, it's not gonna come like, it's not gonna be like a cake like where you insert something and it's gonna come out completely cooked through. But you want it to kind of be barely there. And we'll see when it's done and we'll talk about it, what it looks like. So with this one, it's totally okay that it gets brown on the top because we're gonna cover the top up anyway. You can see that it's jiggly still. But it's starting to kind of peel up. I'm just gonna turn the oven off now. It's been about an hour and 30 minutes. And we're gonna let it sit in the oven for 1 more hour with it like partially open. All right, this has been sitting in the fridge and I'm finally opening her up. This is very exciting. I do just wanna go around the edges. I'm gonna cut this off. So to make the topping, I should have just made it all at once, but right now I'm currently cooking more apples the exact same way. So I'm not gonna show you again that I cooked the apples for the filling. So we're just gonna make some more of those and put those on the top. This is exciting. It's also great because we can taste it. I mean, I don't know how it couldn't be good because everything we put in it, but we wanna be sure, you know? Now we're gonna make the crumble topping. We're gonna line a sheet pan with some parchment paper. We're gonna mix a 1/4 cup of flour with a 1/2 cup of old-fashioned rolled oats, a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/8 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm just gonna use a pastry cutter to cut in a 1/4 cup of cold salted butter. This is gonna make like a crumbly, dry mixture. We're gonna spread that right over a lined sheet pan with parchment paper, or you could, use whatever you have. So we're gonna make the caramel sauce. You want a cup of sugar. We're gonna stir this over medium heat, and at first it's gonna seem like nothing is happening, but then it's gonna actually turn brown and liquefy, and you wanna cook it until it's fully liquefied. Once it's fully liquefied, we're gonna add in 6 tablespoons of salted butter. And you just wanna keep stirring that while that butter melts right into the caramel sauce. And as soon as that butter is done melting, you want to take that off the heat and pour in a 1/2 cup of heavy cream and do that kind of slowly while you're whisking. I had my husband help me because I was like, I can't hold this and pour this and whisk. And it's hot, right? So he was like, yeah, it's gonna burn me. He was all right. He was strong. He could handle it. But it's a little bit of a process once you add that in. And then you just want to put that back on the stove for just a minute or two, whisking constantly. We're trying to get any little bits out of it. And then you take it off the heat and let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes. And then to finish this beautiful cheesecake up, you just want to pour the rest of the apples that you just made over the top. They should be cooled. Then the crumble. So you've got that crunchy stuff, and then just top it off with a drizzle of the salted caramel sauce. You totally don't have to go through the effort of making the caramel sauce too. You can very easily just buy some at the store that is just as delicious, or, I mean, maybe your homemade is a little more delicious, but it's going in with all the cheesecake. So if you're trying to save yourself a step, that is where to save the step. So I served this at a family party. I had people coming up to me saying this is the creamiest, most delicious cheesecake they have ever eaten. It certainly is hearty, like one slice, and you've probably had your calories for the week, but that's okay because if we're serving this at Thanksgiving or even Christmas, that is the one time when I think it's okay to have a little bit of extra indulgence. But this is absolutely gorgeous. It is sure to be a showstopper. So this is certain to be a new tradition in your household. We're making a cannoli pie. And we're just gonna start by par baking a pie crust. You can definitely make your own if you have like a favorite. We're just gonna go the easy method because this is a kind of involved pie anyway. So if you're making it for a holiday, you're gonna wanna make it the day before. But I know, holidays are special and this is a time to try something new and do something a little bit more involved because it's fun and it's delicious. So I have one in here. This is, it said apple pie in it, but no one will see that. I'd love to get like a cute little crust going, but because this is a deep dish, it's probably not really gonna look like that. Another alternative is to just buy, either use a smaller pie pan or buy one that's like in the freezer section that is already made, because those have really cute crusts. And I'm sure that would look really good with this. But I think we'll be able to cover up any crust issues we have, like if it doesn't look super cute on the edges, with some whipped cream. So not mad. I'm just going through with a fork with this. And I'm just following the Pillsbury instructions. It's 450 degrees for, I think it's like 10 minutes. Now I gotta look back at the package, but I think it's like 10 minutes. So to make the filling, you wanna use either a stand mixer or a hand mixer. I'm just gonna use the stand mixer because it's gonna be a little bit easier for me. And then add 2 8-ounce packages of cream cheese. You wanna make sure that those are like room temperature or slightly softened. 1 cup of ricotta cheese, 1.5 cups of heavy cream, 1 cup of powdered sugar, 2 teaspoons of vanilla. You can do a teaspoon of orange zest if you'd like. I don't really like mine with orange, so I'm not gonna do that. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and we're gonna beat that for like 4 to 5 minutes until like super fluffy. So this is what the peaks look like. You can see that it's like, almost made it like whipped cream. It tastes incredible. It literally tastes like, yeah, a cannoli, but like a cannoli cake, like a cannoli cheesecake maybe. There's no egg in this, so we can just like lick it up. Yes. Gonna add in these mini chocolate chips. Crust is completely cooled. You don't want to have it be hot at all. Mine is cooled for like an hour, so we're good. And then just put all of this pie filling inside of here. It's a lot. So now we're gonna make the ganache. We need a cup of the mini chocolate chips, or any chocolate chips will do. And you wanna put it in a microwave safe bowl. And then 3 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream. And we're just gonna microwave this for 45 seconds. Give it a stir. And you can totally do 15-second intervals, but I was surprised that this just cooked right down in 45 seconds. Because once you mix it really well, it makes this beautiful ganache. And so when it's perfect, you're gonna see it's like this beautiful silky ganache. Chocolate cream to put on the pie. So I took this out of the fridge after 2 hours, and I'm just gonna spread the ganache over the top. And we're gonna wanna put this back in the fridge for roughly 2 hours again. It's tough because this like hardens really fast, so you just wanna be as careful as possible about not getting some of the cream from below. And you don't really have to cover all the way to the edge because we're gonna put some whipped cream on that at the end. So just don't worry about it too much. All right, now we're gonna make the whipped cream. So I have a cup. You can use up to 1.5 cups. Actually, that's probably just about what I have, which is nice. 1.5 cups of whipped cream. You do wanna use like a beater like this on this. I do also have like a hand one that works really well for whipped cream, so that's nice. It's definitely an option. Hand stirring it, not recommended. It would take forever. So I'm gonna beat this until soft peaks form, and then I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of powdered sugar until stiff peaks form. So if you don't have a pastry tip or a piping bag, that's perfectly okay. You can just kind of spoon this on the outside of the pie and kind of in the middle, and it'll still taste amazing. I did have a pastry tip, but I couldn't find any in my pastry bag, so I need to remind myself to grab some. They even have a pastry kit at the Dollar Tree, so for $1.25, you can be decorating like a god or goddess. So, you can grab one of those. I just used a Ziploc bag with my pastry tip, so I cut the corner of it, and then I just taped it in there, and it worked out really well. So if you have a tip but you don't have a bag, you can always use a gallon bag. And then I just went around the edge and made little flowers with it. And then with the rest of it, I just took it and I plopped it right in the middle of the pie. And so you could probably make that look a little prettier if you wanted to, but I kind of liked the idea of just kind of putting it on there, like a nice big pillowy bunch of it. And then you totally don't have to do this. You can just sprinkle on some mini chocolate chips. But if you'd like to make it really special and really impress, especially if you're serving this at Thanksgiving, get 3 to 4 mini chocolate chip cannolis and then put those right on top. And right on top of that whipped cream like that, I mean, it's seriously beautiful. Who wouldn't want a slice of this, really? And I serve this at, if you remember, you've been with me for a while, I do some lunches with my mother and grandmother, and little Benny's there too. And so I just serve that at that lunch. We call it wine lunch because we have some wine. And we just had an amazing time. It was so delicious. Something really special. My mom had texted me after because she had hers a little bit later. And she was like, oh my goodness, this is really special. This might be better than cheesecake. That's a lot saying it's better than cheesecake. I agree. I thought it was really phenomenal, and I'll be making it again and again. Now, I feel like sliders are all the rage right now, so we had to do leftover sliders, and they were heavenly. Now, the key to these is always the topping that you put over those delicious Hawaiian rolls. So you want to microwave a combination of 3 tablespoons of butter, 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard, and 1 teaspoon of everything bagel seasoning. And you want to microwave that for about a minute just till your butter is melted and kind of everything is mixed together. Then you want 1 12-ounce package of Hawaiian rolls, and you want to slice those in half. Place them in a 13 by 9 pan. Top them with leftover turkey, cranberry sauce, and cheddar cheese. You could probably use Monterey Jack here as well. Brush your microwaved butter mixture right over the top of those rolls. This is what makes it taste so amazing. Then go ahead and sprinkle some more everything bagel seasoning on there because you really can't go wrong. You're going to cover this with foil and bake at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. Then take that cover off and bake for an additional 5 minutes. And look how good these look. I am just so excited that these little sliders became so popular. I feel like mine did get a little bit brown on the top because I did get distracted and leave them in for a little bit longer than I maybe should have. But the crispy, crunchy top was actually quite good. So your choice on how you want to cook them. And I just sliced them up. I put them on a tray and we just dug in and devoured them faster than I would like to admit. But this was a really great thing to do with leftovers, and I can't wait to do it again. I want to thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have a fabulous Thanksgiving. If you want to keep the inspiration going, click on this next video. It's my top 10 from last year, and there's some incredible recipes that I don't want you to miss out on in there too.
I would watch the days go by, wasted in blue. I was out of you.